Alrighty, guys, welcome. This is your host, ID Jester. So you've watched our tutorial videos on how to manipulate Fantasy Grounds, how to connect to your host, how to get your characters, how to quick link all of your spells and powers and abilities. But you're still not sure of the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules? Well, fortunately for you guys, we're going to go over that in a couple episodes here with you guys today. And there we go. We'll expand this out. So let's talk about the basics of Dungeons and Dragons combat specifically. And we're going to use Fantasy Grounds to kind of show it off. So a few things to keep before we actually talk about what you can do in combat. Let's talk about um, the actual battlefield here. So whenever I hover over a character, you notice all of the spaces adjacent to it are grayed out. That grayness represents each character's or monster's threatening area. So you threaten every space that's adjacent to you, assuming that you can do a melee attack. If you can't do a melee attack, then you don't threaten any space adjacent to you. All right, so if you have a crossbow out or a bow, or you only cast spells, you don't really threaten anything. That there are some exceptions to that. If you own a reaction spell, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Actually, we're going to be talking all about spells in the next episode because they're a little bit more complex to understand. So this is just going to be basic combat, basic tactics on the battlefield, and also uh, you know what actions you can take. And then in the next episode, we'll probably go over spells, using spells, and all what spells mean. So threatening area. Assuming you can do a melee attack, we have Hellsfar here, which is a cleric that has a mace. We got Hamtag the Odorous, who has a battle axe. And then we have Eldrick Daw, who happens to have a light crossbow. So it's very important to keep track of what you have in your hands at all times, your characters, what you actually own in your hands, and also what the enemies have in their hands, because there will be tactical advantages on the battlefield. All right, so threatening area. If you leave someone's threatening area and they can do a melee attack, they get a basic attack against you for free. So if Eldrick Daw here, as you can see, is adjacent to the spider, it's Eldrick Daw's turn and he decides to move away from the spider because he wants to cast a spell at it, right? As soon as he leaves the threatening area, before he leaves, the spider gets a free melee attack against him, and then the character can continue to move. If the spider ends up killing Eldrick Daw, he will die in this space right here, not this space. So, if Eldrick Daw moves, as long as he does not leave the threatening area of this spider, he can actually walk all the way around this spider without worrying about the spider doing any kind of attack on him for moving out of his threatening area, because, as I mentioned, all those spaces adjacent to the giant spider are his threatened area. You only get an attack when you leave someone's threatening area. So that is what they call a reaction action. So let's talk about the different actions you can actually take on your turn, which is very important so you know what you can and cannot do. All right, you can do a move action. You can take an action. You can take a bonus action, assuming you have a spell, power, or ability that allows you to take a bonus action. And then you can do a free action. Free actions are very quick and simple things such as pulling a lever, pulling something out of your belt, dropping a weapon, picking something off the table, opening a unlocked door. Something very quick and easy. If the door is locked and you need to manipulate the locks, it's not a free action. This is going to be something very quick and simple. Yelling to your teammates, hey, I'm in trouble over here. Or someone get behind this spider. Or someone get this spider off of me. Or, whatever the situation is. You can't give a 20-minute dissertation on the giant spider's abilities to all your fellow party members, because each combat represents about 6 seconds. It's supposed to represent about 6 seconds. And you don't have the time to talk for 20 minutes about everything this spider can and cannot do. Or, if the spider is poisonous, you can yell out, he's poisoned, watch out. But you cannot say a 10-minute speech about the pros and cons of this spider's abilities. Okay? So quick and simple and easy things, free actions, opening a door, uh, knocking over a chair, drawing a weapon out, dropping a weapon. If you have to interact with more than one object, it's going to take probably a full round action, but that'll be up to your DM to decide. So you got a move action, you have an action, you may or may not have a bonus action, you have a free action, and then you have one reaction action that you can take per turn. Your reactions reset at the beginning of the round, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of your turn, not the beginning of the round. The beginning of your turn, your reactions are set up. So, for example, if this goblin here decides to move here, he's left Hamtag the Odorous threatening area. Hamtag the Odorous could get a free melee attack in this space. Assuming he doesn't kill the goblin would then move. He could move here. When he moves here, right, Eldritch Dawn only has a crossbow out. And if he doesn't have a spell that has the reaction keyword, again, we're going to talk about spells in detail in another episode. But if he does not have a reaction spell, and he doesn't have any way to do a melee attack, the goblin can just move right by him without any problems. And then let's say the goblin moves here. Once again, he's left Halsfar Black Hand's threatening area. Halsfar does have a mace, but keep in mind, the enemies may or may not be trying to trick you into using your reactions, just as the PCs may or may not be trying to do the same thing to the enemies. So, for example, we know that Aldrich Dahl, being adjacent to the giant spider, there are disadvantages for him trying to cast any kind of ranged spell. Let's say the Eldritch Dawn wants to cast a spell down this hallway, a fireball, or whatever the situation is, and blow up all these goblins. If he's adjacent to the spider, that ranged attack will be done with disadvantage. So he doesn't want to be adjacent to this enemy, but he doesn't want to move away from it because he doesn't want the giant spider to get his reaction attack on him. So let's say it's Hamtag the Odorous' turn. He could move. I'm actually going to just move this goblin back over here. All right, so Hamtag the Odorous, he can move 5, 10, 15, 20. And then when he goes to move in this space, he's leaving the giant spider's threatening area. The giant spider may use his reaction to do an opportunity attack on Hamtag. And assuming Hamtag the Odorous lives through that attack, he can then move there. The thing is, the spider now uses reaction, so Eldritch Dog can move away without getting attack of opportunity on him because he's already used his reaction. But let's say it was Hamtag the Odorous, then it was the spider's turn, and then it was Eldritch Dog's turn. So if Hamtag the Odorous did this and got his attack reaction to do the attack of opportunity, now the giant spider's turn to go. He moves over here and bites Hamtag the Odorous, and then his turn is done. but his reactions have now reset. So if Eldritch Daw does decide to move away, the giant spider could use his reaction once again. So keeping and manipulating the tactical battlefield and understanding what you can and cannot do, very important in Dungeons and Dragons as you try to use the rules to help manipulate the battlefield the best way you can. All right, so threatening area. If you are adjacent to an enemy, whether that is an enemy that you can see and isn't incapacitated, if the giant spider's dying or unconscious or whatever, he doesn't threaten anything, right? Because he's unconscious. But assuming he's not unconscious, when Eldritch Daw, if he wants to use a melee attack spell or something else that's not a ranged spell, he can do that without any penalties. But if he is adjacent, or if he decides to use his crossbow, which is a ranged power, again, very hard to use anything ranged when you're adjacent to someone else. Very hard to do that. So just keep that in mind. So and also keep in mind what you can and cannot do. Make sure you have understand what you have in your hands at all times. All right. So move action. Okay. So everyone gets a move action. They get an action. They may or may not get a bonus action. That's based upon spells and powers. If we look at Hamtag the Odorous and we go to his abilities and we go to Second Wind here, you will see under Second Wind it says, on your turn you can use a bonus action to regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. So he could use his bonus action for Second Wind because it says as on your turn as a bonus action. You only get one bonus action, so he couldn't, if he had two different things that gave him bonus actions, he could still only use one of them. And so you have your move action, you have your actions, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. Your bonus actions, again, most of your powers and spells, our abilities, will tell you what kind of action it is. So if we were to use, let's see if he has anything that might channel divinity. No, it's just an outline of what he can do. Yeah, Second Wind, which is again a bonus action. And I don't think he's got any good examples. What about Eldritch Daw? Let's see what Eldritch Daw has. Arcane Recovery. All right, you've learned to regain some of your magical energies once per day when you use a short rest, right? So that's not going to do anything in combat, so don't have to worry about that. But basically, just keep in mind that anytime you have an ability and it says as a bonus action, which means you don't need to use your full action to do it, you can just use your bonus action to do it. All right, so move action, very simple. The main thing about move actions that a lot of players don't use to their advantage is you can actually break your move action up with other actions. So if Hamtag the Odorous it's his initiative turn, he says, all right, I'm going to do my move action, 5, 10, 15. He then is going to use his action to attack. Right, he attacks the giant spider, and then he's still got 15 feet of movement. He could go 5, 10, 15. So he basically could run up, attack, and then run back. Of course, moving out of the spider's threatening area will provoke an attack of opportunity. Now, maybe that, again, might be a tactical, good, sound decision. Get the spider to attack Hamtag the Odorous, so then Eldritch Daw can move away without having to worry about the giant spider biting him. But each combat encounter is different. But the main thing to take away from this is you can use your move action and break it up with several attacks. So let's say Hamtag the Odorous is now 5th level or whatever, and he's got 2 attacks. He could use his move action, 5, 10, 15. he does his attack and then moves 5, 10. Again, would get an attack of opportunity for leaving the giant spider, assuming the giant spider hasn't used his reaction yet. And then can come over and do another attack against the goblin. And then he's got 5 feet left of movement. Maybe he wants to move away. Now, maybe the goblin would get an attack of opportunity on him, a reaction, assuming he hasn't used his reaction yet. But, you know, you can break up your attacks and your movements with other actions. All right, so just keep that in mind. So movement, very simple. You move up to your speed. You don't have to. You know, if Hamtag is here, he can 5, 10, 15 attack. I'm done, right? He doesn't have to use up all of his movement. Other movement is getting up. Let's say Hamtag the Odorous was knocked down on the ground. He's laying prone on the ground, right? So getting up from being prone takes half of your movement. Half of your movement. So if you have a speed of 30, it takes 15 to move to stand up, and then he would only have 15 feet to move away. That would be his whole action. So going prone is free. You can go prone as a free action on your turn, but getting up from prone takes half of your movement. So movements, pretty simple. You get your movement every turn. You can move your speed. It may or may not cause attack of opportunities as you move around, but you can break your movement up with your different actions. All right, now let's talk. We talked about bonus actions. Pretty much, you're just going to have spells, abilities, and powers that say use this as a bonus action, right? Second wind, use this as a bonus action. If you don't have something that says bonus action, you can't just create a bonus action for yourself. You can't say, I'm going to come up here, use a bonus action to attack this guy, and then I'm going to come over here and then use my regular attack, okay? No, it doesn't work that way. Your bonus actions are only spells, abilities, and powers that say use this as a bonus action. There's quite a few that do, so you will have bonus actions you might be able to do. Your reaction, again, your reaction. There are a few spells that are classified as reactions, but more than likely, 95% of the time, your reaction is going to be when someone leaves your threatening area and you have a way to do a melee attack, whether it's through a spell or through an actual item. If you have a bow out, you cannot get an attack of opportunity. If you have a potion and a shield in your hands, again, neither your potion nor your shield has a melee attack associated with that, so you cannot do that. So you have to have a melee weapon in your hands. If you notice all these goblins coming up the stairs with bows in their hands, you know, that would be a perfect opportunity for the cleric. Let's say it's the cleric turn. He's got a bow, and all these guys have got bows in their hands. He can move up here, take his attack, and then continue his move action to move away, because he doesn't want to be in the front line. And he doesn't have to worry about the enemies getting attacks of opportunity or using their reactions on him. All right, so that's the reactions. The free actions we talked about: yelling, screaming, grabbing something off your, you know, putting your hood of your cloak up, you know, putting a mask on, pulling something out of your belt pouch if you use spell components. What else? Opening a door, picking something up off the ground. You know, just something that's going to take like literally like half a second to a second. You know, not very long. You only have 6 seconds. Drawing a weapon out. You know, things like that. You cannot, you know, if Hamtag the Odorous does not have a weapon out, and this goblin comes running by and leaves in his threatening area, he can't use his reaction to draw his weapon and then attack with his reaction. That just doesn't happen. So you have to have your weapon in your hand ready to go. I mean, it makes all this stuff makes perfect sense, right? Um, and free action, yelling and screaming, short phrase, that's it. Boom, you're done. Not a whole 5-minute discussion on what kind of battlefield tactics you're going to use. This is not a tactical combat experience. D&D is a role-playing game. You can turn it into a tactical combat system if your players and your DM enjoys that, but combat can definitely slow things down. Try to keep things speeding right along, keep things moving, and understanding the basics of combat. Pretty simple. They're not overly complex. Movement, by the way, let's talk about a few movement things. So I'm going to move this out of the way. So your movement speed is whatever, 30 feet, 25 feet, whatever it is. All right. Anytime you move into a space with an ally, you can do that, no problems, right? So you can move through your allies. So if Aldrich Daw's turn, he could go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So you can move through your allies, no problems. You cannot move through enemies. So if Aldrich Daw's here, can't go into that space and move past it. All right, so just keep that in mind. You cannot move through enemies, but you can move through allies. There will be difficult terrain spaces. Anytime there's, like in this example, these are, I'm assuming, pillars that are holding the ceiling up. If Hamtag the Odorous moves into this space, it's called difficult terrain, where he needs to, move around the pillar. It doesn't take up 100% of the space. Just enough to slow them down. So difficult terrain costs you double the movement points. So instead of 5 to move in there, it would cost him 10 movement points. So 10 to move in there, 5 to move in there, 10 to move in there, and another 5. That would be his 30 movement. If there is something on the ground that's causing difficult terrain, and let's say there's a bunch of somebody cast a spell on this space, and there's like weeds and plants that are trying to grab you. Trying to move through that is going to cost you double your movement points because it's difficult terrain. So anything with difficult terrain costs you double the amount of movement points to enter into the space. If let's say, if this is a barrel, again, twice the movement to go in there. Let's talk about corner spaces. So you can move from the corner of a space against an enemy to a corner of a space. So this is a legal move like this, because that monster or that enemy is not taking up quite all of that space, right? But you cannot move, the goblin cannot move across where a door or a wall edge like this, you cannot go from there to there. It's going to cost you 5 to move there, and then you can move there, but you cannot go 5 to go there. All right, so you cannot cross the edge of a wall or a door or doorway or anything like that. You have to enter in and then move around, right? Let's see, is that it? Difficult terrain. Standing up from prone is another big one. Again, half your movement to stand up. And let's get rid of this. There we go. I think you can't cross the edge. I think that's everything with movement. If I think of something else, I'll let you know. All right, so I saved this one for last because this is the big section. This is the big one. This is your action section. So again, you got to move, right? You got an action. You got a bonus action. You have free actions, and then you have your reaction actions. It sounds like a lot, but a lot of those, not every time you're going to use a bonus action, not every time you're going to need a free action, not every time you're going to have a reaction action. So it's basically move action and then your regular actions. Your regular actions, there are quite a few different varieties of those. Let's talk about them. So attack, which is going to be a very common one. You move, you attack. You use the attack action, right? If you don't use the attack action, you may or may not get any bonuses you have to your attacks. So if you, for some reason, you have a cloak on that gives you 1,000 extra attacks each round, right? You can only get those bonuses if you use the attack action. So if I do a move action and then I do another move action, I did not do the attack action, so I do not get any of the bonuses that would be associated with an attack action. So attack action is obviously an attack, whether that's a ranged attack, a melee attack, um, you know, ranged or melee, I guess, are the only ones. So attack action. Your second one is your spell. Casting a spell is an action. We're going to talk about spells in another episode, so I'm not going to cover them very much. In this episode, just know that it is an action to cast a spell. There are some variations to that, which we'll talk about in the next episode. But move, cast a spell, move and attack. Very common items, very common rounds that your player characters will have. I'm going to move, and then I'm going to attack, and then I'm going to move, and I'm going to cast a spell. Of course, you can do these in any order. So I can cast my spell at the giant spider, and then I can move. So you can do them in any order you want. And like I already showed you, you can actually break up your move action with your other actions in between. So I could move, take a bonus action, move some more, take my regular action, move some more, and maybe I have, use my free action to pull the lever over there on the wall that opens the secret passage. So you break them up however you want to do. Casting a spell is an action. We'll talk about that in the next episode. Dash action. So you take your move action. Let's say these guys were exploring this room and then they triggered this ambush. They're yelling down the hallway, "Come help, come help, come help." Well, Eldritch Dahl was down here investigating, whatever the situation was. He wants to take a move action. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Right? So that was his move action. Now he can do a dash action, which basically allows you to do another move action. So 5, 10. Again, cannot do this, right? Cannot go from here to there. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Hey guys, how you doing? And finally 30. Again, cannot go here, from here to here. Cannot go from here to here. Difficult terrain, again, maybe there's rocks in the way, which might slow you down. You have to ask your DM on what kind of, what's in each space and whether you can get by it or not. Maybe the DM says, "Oh, these pillars are too wide. You are too close to the wall. You can't squeeze in there unless you're a small creature." Small-sized creature, which would, that would work for the goblins because they can squeeze by, but you guys couldn't because you're too big. Anyways, dash action, right? So you move, and then you spend your action to do a dash, and it lets you move again. All right. Disengage is an action. Disengage is an action. When you disengage, none of your movement provokes attacks of opportunity. So let's say the wizard opens the door and there's all these goblins standing there, and the DM says, "Roll initiative." Eldritch Dahl wins initiative, and nobody's surprised. Everyone's ready to go. Eldritch Dahl says, "Oh man, oh man, oh man. What am I going to do? Well, I don't want to stand here and fight these guys. They're going to kill me in just a couple swings." So he decides to take the disengage action because he doesn't want enemies getting free attacks of opportunity on him. So disengage, all it does is none of your movement will provoke attacks of opportunity. So he can move here. The goblin does not get an attack of opportunity because he's used the disengage action. He can then move here, here, and then back to here. The giant spider, again, does not get an attack of opportunity because his movement does not provide attacks of opportunity because of your movement. Other things might, but your movement does not. So you're carefully disengaging. You're watching the enemies, making sure they don't get any free attacks on you. All right, so there's disengage. So that's how your wizards or ranged characters, when they're adjacent to someone, can get away from them without provoking these attack of opportunities. As we already showed you, there are advantages if you move other characters. Maybe the enemies might use their attack of opportunities, and then you wouldn't need to disengage. I can just simply do a move action if the giant spider uses reaction on black hand there. All right. So disengage. Again, none of your movement provokes attack of opportunities. You can move in and out of enemies' threatening areas freely until you use up your movement. You don't get any extra movement on it. You just get your normal. None of your movement provokes attacks of opportunity. So that's disengage. Dodge. Dodge action. Basically, any attack against you until the start of your next turn, any attack roll made against you has disadvantage. If you can see the attacker, and you also make dexterity saving throws with advantage. All right, so if I take the dodge action, right? Dodge action, the spider moves up, tries to attack me. He's got to roll with disadvantage, which means he's going to be rolling two. Because I don't. I don't have these guys ready to go in combat. But basically, with disadvantage, you roll two 20-sided dice, and you drop the higher of them. So in this case, he rolled a 15 and an 18. This time he rolls a 4 and a 19, so drop the 19 and he got the 4. So you can see if you're expecting a lot of attacks and you don't hopefully want to receive all these attacks, you can take the dodge action. Dodge action. Remember though, you only get one action. If you choose dodge, which means you're not casting a spell, you're not attacking, you're not disengaging, you're not doing any other action. But dodge can be very helpful. Help action, right? So help action is very helpful because let's say Eldritch Dahl here is adjacent to the giant spider. He's got his little crossbow out, right? And he knows, well, if I shoot the spider, it's gonna be a disadvantage because I'm adjacent to an enemy and I'm using a ranged attack. But maybe, oh maybe, the Eldritch Dahl can be of more help to other people than actually trying to do an attack himself. So he decides to do the help action. So the help action will allow anybody that tries to attack the target that he's adjacent to, because he's distracting them, to get advantage. So Hamtag the Odorous, when he, if it's Hamtags, he can move 5, 10. Then he does his attack action. He's going to do it with advantage, which means you're going to roll two 20-sided dice and you're going to take the higher of the two. So instead of a 7, we rolled an 18. Let's go advantage again. And in this case, we rolled two 6s, so it didn't help much. This case, it was a 16 and an 8. So anybody that helps attack the enemy, that is, so you're basically, what you're doing is you're trying to distract the spider. You're, grabbing its legs. You're hitting it. You're not letting it concentrate on everything. So any of your allies get an attack against it with advantage. So instead of Eldritch Dahl, right, using his crossbow to do 1d6 points of damage to this spider with disadvantage, he could use the help action and allow his allies to get advantage, his main damage dealers, against this spider. So help action. You can also use a hide action. Hide action, basically, if the situation comes up, No one can see you. Let's say this giant spider wasn't there. At this point, the goblins have opened the door, and the DM rolls initiative on everyone, and Eldritch Dog goes first. No one can actually see him because if we draw a line of sight from this goblin square, none of his line of sights can actually touch Eldritch Dog, so he could try to hide and perform the hide action, which there's a whole big section on it, but it basically allows people to not target you in combat until they can find you and see you, or if you attack. There's a big section on hiding, but so that's kind of it. All right, your other action you can take is a ready action. So, for example, there's a doorway here. There's a doorway here, right? And Hellsfar is like, okay, I'm going to open the door. Hamtag, the owners, can say, all right, I'm going to ready an action. When he opens that door, if I see any enemy in that hallway, I'm shooting my crossbow. Same thing here with, let's see, we'll put him right there. There we go. So these guys got ranged weapons out. They're like, okay, you open that door, and if I see any enemies, I'm shooting it. We'll assume that, they can't obviously see this hallway full of goblins at this point. They don't know what's behind the door, and maybe they just heard some sound on the other side of the door. All right, so they can ready an action. Or even if you're doing it in combat, right? Eldritch Dog can say, all right, my action is I'm going to ready something. So you're going to ready something, and then you're going to give a trigger, right? So Eldritch Dog can say, all right, I'm going to ready. If anyone moves adjacent to me, I'm taking the disengage action, right? No, he can't actually do that because that would be his action. He can say, all right, let's go over here. So this is a pillar, but it's old and crumbly. The DM says it's half broke apart. And let's actually use the guy with some muscles over here. All right, Eldritch Daw's like gonna be he's gonna be the bait. Hellsfar is gonna open the door. Right, Hamtag the owners is gonna ready in action. He's gonna push this pillar over on the first enemy he sees. So again, you're gonna trigger, tell what's gonna happen to that trigger, and you're gonna ready it for that action. So that's readying an action. I'm going to, maybe Hellsfar says, okay, I'm going to ready my action. So an Eldritch Daw brings the pipe bomb over to me. I'm going to throw it in the hallway because, Eldritch Daw maybe can't do it for whatever reason. So he's going to ready an action so that when he gets the pipe bomb from Eldritch Daw, he's going to throw it in the hallway. So when later on in the round, Eldritch Daw's turn, he moves up, he hands Hellsfar Blackhand the pipe bomb, and then the reaction or the ready action goes off because the trigger's been given. All right, so that's readying an action. There's really unlimited possibilities. It's all up to your imagination to be able to figure out what can we do to help our situation, right? So there's all kinds of great possibilities. Just you have to think about it. The reason there is a ready action is, let's say we roll initiative, and Hellsfar goes first, right? And then Hamtag goes second, and then Eldritch Daw goes third, and then the goblins all go afterwards, right? Well, if he didn't have the ready action, what would happen is he would go, do his stuff, then Hamtag the owners would go, do his stuff, then Eldritch Daw would come up, hand him the pipe bomb, right? And then do the rest of his stuff. And then all the goblins would go. And basically, come in, and then all of a sudden he can't throw the bomb down here anymore. And that's all because of the way initiative is rolled. So the way to get around that situation is if you go before someone else, all right, you can always ready your action ahead of time. So that way you don't run into a situation where I go, the other character goes, and finally the last character goes. He runs up, he gives me what I need to be able to do it, but then the guy, all the enemies move, and then I can't actually do my reaction. I can't. It just wasted everyone's round because we couldn't because of initiative, right? All right, so that's ready in action. It's all up to your imagination. Your possibilities are on this. Make sure you work it out with your DM. Tell the DM what you're trying to do, so he has a good idea of what kind of action you may or may not be trying to perform. You can also do a search action. So let's say the party's in here, they're under attack, but they need to find something because the room is filling up with water and there's a lever in the room somewhere that probably keeps the water from coming in the room. So you can actually spend your action to search as you're moving around the room, right? So search and then use an object, right? You can use an object as an action. So drinking a potion is using an object. Even though you can, with some objects, you can manipulate them. You can't actually physically use the object. So I cannot pull a pipe. Let's just say I cannot pull out something out of my satchel and then throw it. All right. A free action that allows you to manipulate an object is quick and easy, right? And doesn't involve any time or any kind of attack roll or anything like that. So if I was to pull a potion out of my belt pouch, that is a free action. Or a potion of spider climb, or a potion of fire breathing, or whatever the situation is. I can pull that out. I can pull it out of my pants pocket. I can pull it out of my pouch. I can pull it out of my jacket pocket, wherever I've got it. That's quick and easy. Boom, you got it. I can draw a weapon. I can pull out a dagger. Whatever the situation is, quick and easy. But you can't actually manipulate the object. That takes a use the object action. So if I want to drink a potion, that actually takes an action, right? I can pull it out for free, but to manipulate it, if I run up to the door, if the door is locked, I could use an action to try to pick the lock on the door. Or I could take an action to try and break the door down. Or I could take an action to put my ear up to the door and listen on the other side. These are all things that are going to take more time than just opening an unlocked door. We know opening an unlocked door literally takes a quarter of a second, right? So if you're trying to do anything that takes longer than that amount of time, it's going to be using an object, which will it'll take your action for the turn. If you're not sure, ask your DM. Each DM may grant certain abilities and things based upon what their feel in the situation is, right? But if you're drinking a potion, if you're applying poison to a weapon, if you are activating a wand, if you are trying to pick a lock, if you are trying to barricade a door, anything like that where you're actually using objects for more than just a quarter of a second, half a second, it's going to be using an object. All right. So that kind of gives you, hopefully, some understanding. Again, the actions you have, move action. All right. Remember you can't cross through the corner of things. Just keep that in mind. You can move through your allies freely. Move through your allies freely. You cannot move through enemies. There are some restrictions to some of these things. If you're two sizes bigger or smaller than an enemy, you can actually move into their space. So if if you were really big and they were really small, you could actually move into their space. There are feats and powers in the game that'll change everything that I just told you about. So keep that in mind. There are feats and powers and abilities that'll say, oh, you can move away from an enemy and not have to worry about attacks of opportunity, right? So keep that in mind. Or your ability might be Polearm Master, where whenever they enter your threatening area is when you get an attack of opportunity on them. So just, every rule, ability, and everything that I've just talked about, there are probably things in the rules that's going to change all that. Otherwise, we wouldn't have these great abilities and feats to change everything, right? So the move actions, moving through your allies, cannot move through them. You can break up your move action with different actions, free actions and bonus actions, and your regular action during your move action, right? Move 5 feet, do a bonus action. Move 5 feet, do a regular action. Move 5 feet and do a free action. And then continue the rest of my move. All right? And that's a great, great way to really kind of manage the battlefield. There's nothing worse than having someone move up and go, okay, I attack. Right? All right. Are you done? Yes, I'm done. Okay. Well, you didn't, a lot of times you won't have bonus actions. Again, if we look at some of the character classes, they don't have as much bonus actions to do, but, you know, you should be trying to manipulate the battlefield by using all of your special actions and using the rules associated with it. All right, I'm going to move here. So when the first goblin comes running by me, right, and comes over to attack Hamtag, I'm going to get a reaction on him, right? Or do I use my reaction? So move actions, regular actions, bonus actions, free actions, and your reaction actions. One reaction action. So again, if you got a whole group of goblins come running by you, you're going to have to decide which one of these guys am I going to attack? Am I going to, am I going to wait for the last guy? Am I going to go for the first guy? Because you're never sure. Is the next guy going to come running by me, or is he just going to stop at me? You're never going to know. The DM might be tricky on that, might not be tricky. And then, as we talked about, using the PCs to help one another with the reactions, right? Get your wizard up here, move up, move away, see if he uses a reaction on you, and then Elder Dog can move away without having to worry about the reaction attack of opportunity. Always remember what's in your hands, what's in your allies' hands, and what's in your enemy's hands, so you know when a good opportunity to run by someone, maybe, you know, knocking an enemy down is also a great, it sounds like, oh, I'm not going to do much damage by knocking him down, but, there's nothing better than, let's say I have a power and boom, I knock this guy on the ground, right? Let's see, he's on the ground, right? And now he doesn't have any attacks of opportunity on me because he doesn't have that ability because he's prone now. Boom, boom, boom. I can just run around these guys, no problem. So manipulating the battlefield, key element, but don't turn it into a tactical. You don't want to spend 20 minutes each round trying to figure out what each character is going to do in each situation. Take your turn, move on, keep it going. But, yell out real quickly as a free action. I'm stuck in the corner over here. Get this spider off of me. Well, it's the other player's turn to figure out, well, how do we get this spider off of him, So anyways, bonus actions we talked about, those abilities and powers that will give you action surge. So starting at second level, you can push yourself beyond your normal limits of movement. On your turn, you can take an additional action on top of your regular action. So with the action surge, he is going to get a second action and a possible bonus action, possible second bonus action because of this action surge. So if he had use the bonus action and his regular action. He could action surge, do another action, and then if possible another bonus action if you had another bonus action available. So look at each of your spells, powers, abilities, see what it says about what kind of action it's going to take. Is it going to take a regular action, a move action? You know, there may be something that says instead of taking a move action, do this power instead. So look at those. Those are very key to understanding Dungeons and Dragons and looking to see, is it a action? Is it a move action? Is it a bonus action? Is it a free action? Is it a reaction action? So, all right, next episode, we're going to talk about spells, manipulating the spells for D&D, and information on what each spell is and what it does, and you know, what you can do with it. All right, so until then, thanks for watching. Hopefully this will help you understand the basics for D&D and get you into our live game. Talk to everyone soon. Take care.